Welcome everyone to the first episode of Alopecia Insights, the podcast where we talk about the effects of living with alopecia, specifically as a student. I'm your host, Smain Ramanuthala. First off, let's start by talking about what alopecia areata is. Alopecia areata is an autoimmune disorder that results in hair loss, mostly on the head, but can occur across the whole body. This can have a profound impact on a student's self-esteem and overall well-being. In this episode, we will take a deep dive into what alopecia really is. Let's get started. Alopecia areata is a chronic autoimmune disorder that occurs when the body's immune system mistakenly attacks the hair follicles, leading to hair loss. While the exact cause is still unknown, researchers believe that a combination of genetic and environmental factors contributes to its development. There can be several different types of alopecia, most common being areata, which only affects a certain area of your scalp. We will dive deeper into alopecia and gather some more insight with our special guest, Dr. Kimberly Belay, joining us now.
Happy to answer any questions, especially to help out anybody that's going through a hard time with their diagnosis. Again, I'm Dr. Kimberly Billet. I just go by Dr. Kim, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, so go ahead.
First off, I wanted to ask what alopecia was and why it starts.
So alopecia is actually a very general blanket term. Alopecia just means hair loss, and there's so many different types of hair loss. So most of the time dermatologists won't just say alopecia. Alopecia areata is a very specific hair loss diagnosis. And it is where you end up losing hair in discrete patches. It can be on the scalp, but it can also be on many other areas of the body as well. Eyebrows, eyelashes, armpits, groin, anywhere. And basically, not to complicate things too much, but the reason why you're losing the hair in these patches is because the immune system goes a little awry, and it starts attacking the pigment in these hair follicles. And as a result, with enough inflammation caused, the hair follicle does eventually die and fall out. So the first thing we see with these diagnoses, with this diagnosis, is that initially the hair turns white because the pigment is being destroyed. But then with all of that inflammation in the area, the hair eventually also becomes destroyed and falls out. And that's why you lose these patches of hair.
What age does alopecia usually show up in?
It can be any age. So it is more often in younger folks that we see this issue come up. But that being said, I have plenty of patients who come in, at any age that have a new diagnosis of alopecia areata. And for some patients, it's a one-time deal. They have one patch and then never have one ever again. And other patients, they can have continued recurrence. So it's really difficult to predict the course, but it can really be any age.
I also wanted to ask what products you could use in your hair if you have alopecia.
So I am not a stickler for that. So as long as you're on the right treatment, and this is true for a lot of diagnoses that I see in clinic, I really like patients to be able to live their life the way they want to live it. And when it comes to alopecia areata, there's really not much of an effect that any products that you're using over the counter are going to have on this diagnosis. The only thing I suggest is that if you are having inflammation from any of your over-the-counter products, then definitely stop that, because that's only going to irritate your hair follicles further. But as long as you're not being irritated by it or allergic to it, then continuing your normal regimen is fine as long as you're on the correct treatment.
Cool. So do you think that the food you eat or your gut system health would have any impact on alopecia?
No, so I'll tell you, there's so many studies out there. There's a lot of information, and there's been a lot of theories as to why this happens or why it comes up. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's nothing that you did. It's nothing behaviorally that's caused it. It's ultimately just the immune system sometimes does suddenly go awry and starts attacking the wrong thing. And we see this with many other conditions as well, many other autoimmune conditions And so in this particular case, it attacks the pigment in your hair follicles, but there are many other autoimmune conditions where your immune system starts attacking other parts of you and causes problems because of that. But nothing that you've done to cause this, nothing that you've eaten or anything like that.
What help is out there for people who are stressing about their hair and about their alopecia?
So there's a lot of resources out there, and probably, since I came out of training, there's probably a lot more that developed. I mean, look at you, you're creating your own help for people. So every day there's more and more out there as far as resources go for patients that are going through what you're going through, and especially for alopecia areata, there is a bulk out there. Again, more than I can probably even speak to at this point. I'm sure the internet is a great tool for you to be able to link up with other folks who have this issue. But as far as, going through the mental stress of it, obviously if it really is becoming a large burden, heavier than you had initially expected, then I think seeking out professional help, seeing a psychiatrist or even a counselor to help talk through some of the issues that you're going through would be so. We're here as well. I mean, we see a lot of patients like this. So if you need the comfort of knowing that we see other patients with this issue, or need some kind of reassurance from a medical standpoint, then also happy to talk through any of that with you. So, definitely going to your dermatologist and talking that out is a good first step, because if they can't help you talk through some of the issues themselves, then they can also provide you with the resources to help get you through some of the stress that you're going through. The good thing is that, often, most times, treatments are very effective, and we are able to help get you through and get you to where you want to be. But sometimes that can be kind of a battle, kind of a struggle for some people, and treatments are not always 100% effective. And so definitely if you're going through some emotional burden due to your diagnosis, then one, talk to your dermatologist about it, see if you can find other resources to help you through. And then again, there's probably a bulk of, groups out there, a lot of literature out there, stuff that you can read through to kind of help you get through it. Because when it comes to hair, it is a large emotional burden. I see plenty of people who have broken down in clinic because of hair loss issues. So you're not alone. That's super common. And I'd say, again, first step, talk to your dermatologist and have them help guide you.
Thank you so much, doctor, for being so nice and being so informative. Thank you for giving so much hope and joy to others out there who have alopecia and want to learn more about it. Now moving on to how alopecia is for students. Living with alopecia areata can be particularly challenging for students, as they don't know what is going on and only understand that they look different from their peers. In this day and age, that could make them feel bad about themselves, or that they are not as good as others. But this podcast and many others will tell you otherwise. Note that this podcast is not only for students, but can be used as a helpful resource for parents as well, who feel bad for their students. Everybody can learn a little bit more about alopecia, how alopecia is, and how it affects people in this podcast. Emotionally, living with alopecia areata as a student can be a roller coaster of emotions. The sudden and unpredictable hair loss can lead to feelings of embarrassment, self-consciousness, and a loss of identity. Students may experience anxiety about their appearance and worry about how their peers and teachers will react. In my opinion, one of the first steps in coping with alopecia areata is self-acceptance. You should feel happy to be yourself and talk normally about it with people you trust, like your parents. As well as that, this podcast is a tool you can use to see that you are not the only student with alopecia and that there are others. Moving on, we hope to make so that anyone can call in and share their experiences living with alopecia. Students and parents should not be ashamed of knowing someone or having alopecia, and you should know that it is a disorder that many people can have. There are some simple ways you can cover up, like using a hat or styling your hair in a way that covers your patches. But I feel that the best way to really feel good about yourself and your hair is to embrace it and be open about it with others. I understand, though, how hard this can be, as I myself have and am currently dealing with alopecia areata. I know that there is bullying and many other things in school, so I would personally only share it with a highly trusted friend. And it is okay, even if you feel the environment is too hostile to share your information. But at the very least, I am emphasizing once again that alopecia is not something to be ashamed of. Just because you didn't do anything wrong to get it, you can't control it, and it's not a bad thing, just really another part of life. It's important to highlight that alopecia areata does not define your entire identity. This condition should not stop you from pursuing your passions, like engaging in social activities, participating in extracurricular activities, or playing sports. Students with alopecia areata have accomplished many great things across various fields, including science, acting, arts, sports, and even public advocacy. By celebrating these achievements and creating awareness about alopecia areata, students can educate others, dispel misconceptions, and foster a more inclusive and accepting society, like in this podcast. As we come to the end of this episode, I want to leave all of you with a message of hope and resilience. Living with alopecia areata, as a student particularly, can be challenging, but it is important to remember that you are not alone. You have your parents, trusted people, and even this podcast in which you can be yourself and try to become more familiarized with alopecia. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Alopecia Insights. Together, we can create a more understanding and inclusive world. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore the social effects of alopecia. Until then, take care and be well.